Good evening. Welcome to the overnight edition of From Day One, operating on extreme low power, but we're going to try to get the episode complete anyway. Part 2 of Art Bell and George Carlin. Let's begin. If I can get it to...
George Bell in the Kingdom of Nye. From west of the Rockies, dial 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. First-time callers may recharge at 1-775-727-1222. Or use the wildcard line at 1-775-727-1295. To recharge on the toll-free international line, call your AT&T operator and have them dial 800-893-0903. This is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell on the Premier Radio Network.
Indeed so. George Carlin is here, and he'll be right back. So we'll get right to it. Now, here is, I'm sure, something positive we can talk about, George.
All right.
Somebody sends a fax, and they're really right. They say even the most cynical person frequently, and you're in that position now, would have some words to say about love. I mean, you're newly in love,
yes, and
you're plunging, tumbling right into it again, and so you must feel pretty positive about that.
Well, the only things that I really believe in, because I don't believe in my country, I don't believe in religion and God and the institutions that man has made, I don't believe in commerce, but I believe in friendship, romantic love, and then family, of course, which is found in friendship. Yes, I believe heartily, and that goes back to my affection for individual existence and individuals and the life of the sole person. It's as I say, when they get into numbers larger than 4 or 5, even sometimes a group of 2.
Yeah.
Will alter how a person is. You've heard a woman will say, well, Mike's not the same when he's with those guys. Or the guys will say, well, now that he's got married, he's a different guy.
Right.
People surrender something. That's why when a good love affair comes along, when a great love happens, it's because the 2 people don't have to surrender too much of themselves to make a new unit. And that's what I'm lucky enough to think I have found. And I agree with that fact set.
All right. Now, on another subject, you were railing about consumerism, and you said you got some out coming up on that soon.
Right.
And yet, and you were talking about beautiful Venice, but Venice, California,
yeah,
it's in California, and Venice is the very center of glitz, glamour, and consumerism. I mean, the very center in the world, if you had to pick a place other than maybe where you are right now.
You mean Venice, California, in Los Angeles?
Yeah. Well, I mean Los Angeles generally.
Oh, okay, fine. Now that I agree to. I agree with. Let me point something out. This might take me a minute or 2.
All right.
I have often confronted it. Well, originally I confronted it for myself, but I've been confronted with the idea of when does one sell out? When have you sold out? And I have a problem with people who try to make that a black or white issue. To me, the idea of compromise or adjustment is on a scale. It's on a continuum. The purest person in the world would have to live in the woods and eat bark and make his own clothing to be truly pure. I mean, even Ted Kaczynski, who hated technology, used a typewriter to type his manifesto.
Absolutely.
And he rode buses, the interstate bus system, to go to a post office, to mail, the United States government, to mail his bombs, which were also a form of crude technology. And certainly no one would say, well, Ted's a sellout. So these things exist on a scale, a sliding scale, and each person must decide how much of an adjustment or compromise, if you will, they are going to make in order to do the thing that's important to them, in order to continue to be the person they want to be. And I have to sell tickets. I have to sell CDs. I have to be in the commercial world. I talked about my IRS problem. That's only because I earned big. So I'm not pure. I don't say that that's my scene. My scene is that I try to keep as much of my values intact as I I can and still exist in this world and not be some sort of a martyr when everyone else is running around taking care of themselves.
Did you ever read Kaczynski's manifesto?
No, I started to, and
he actually had a lot of good points.
Well, of course. I happen to admire people like that, to tell you the truth. I know that the taking of human life to some people is not a good thing, but I don't think we've made human life very, very valuable in this culture we've evolved, and I think there's a place for people who decide to take lives in order to make a point.
Well, there's a lot of that going on. There was a guy on TV, and I can't remember the special I saw, but it was one of these LA gang members, and he looked right into the screen, and he said, "I don't give a damn whether I live or die."
Yeah.
So you can imagine how I feel about you.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's very, very true. I mean, this culture has degraded all of us to some degree or another, and all you can try to do is to cling to some little portions of yourself, and I mean self with almost like with a capital S, that are important and that define you, and let the rest just lie. That's why I take pleasure in the disasters and in the troubles. And let me say something about the millennium thing, the Y2K, and what you spoke so directly to before. I think it's kind of wonderful that the arrogance of this species is what will bring it down. If it goes as badly as you say, and if it really sends us back several decades or centuries or whatever to some level of barbarism, I think it's kind of interesting and ironic and poetic and literary that the fact that we have this admiration for 000, for round numbers, and for a false calculation to start with. Never mind that we're a year off, because people are so ignorant that they think the millennium begins with the 2 and not ends with the 0. To start with, never mind that we're a year off, because people are so ignorant that they think the millennium begins with the 2 and not ends with the 0.
Right.
But beyond that, this is all because a monk, as you know, you're aware of all of this, Dionysius, Dennis the Short was his name. In, I think, the 7th, let me see, I have notes on this here, and let me get it exactly right. What happened was, Dennis the Small, or Dennis the Little, Dionysius Exiguus, Dionysius the Short, he was commissioned by Pope John I in 525. He was a 6th century Scythian monk. He was told to standardize the liturgical calendar, and he did not include a year 0 between 1 BC and 1 AD. So on December 31st, we're welcoming in the last year of the preceding 1,000 years, not the new millennium. That's the obvious part. But on top of that, there is confusion about when Christ was born, because this is all based on one figure, his birth date, and Luke places the birth of Jesus while Quirinius was governor of Syria, which included Judea. But historians know that Quirinius was not appointed governor until AD 6 or AD 7. So they don't know if they're 4 years off, 6 years off, 7 years off. It's all a miscalculation, and if it really destroys civilization, it's a wonderful thing that an arrogant species can bring itself low by its own calculation.
And even though it's wrong.
Hubris.
Yeah, that would be something. And I think we're fully capable of it.
Oh, yeah.
So listen, censorship.
Yeah.
When you first started your career, I think the first album you had some kind of warning label on it. This record contains 7 words you can never say on television or radio, whatever it was.
Right.
Anyway, is there anything left today? Is there any censorship left today? Do you deal with that when you go on HBO? Are there things that they say,
No.
Really?
No. First of all, I own all of my own record albums and masters. I have made 18 records. I own them all, and I own all of my 12 HBO shows. I've had a very good, solid career that's sustained very well, and I own all of these things. I am an independent contractor, and I make a show. HBO gives me a little advance, or not so little, actually, and I make a show, and when I deliver that show, they give me the rest of the money, my profit.
Sure.
And it's a licensing thing, and then they run it for 18 times if they want, and then I keep it.
But they never say a word?
I have not, since 1977 when I began with them 12 shows ago, they have never said a word to me, and I swear to you that's the truth. And that's one of the things that saved me. I had an album career, and by the way, before I get off tonight, Art, I do want to plug my CD box set, and I'll tell you about that later.
All right.
But I had an album career in the 70s where I had 6 albums, and 4 of them went gold. You referred to one of them, the Class Clown album, the 7 words you can never say on TV.
Right.
The next album after that, Occupation Fool, had a sequel called Filthy Words, and that's the one that went to the Supreme Court. I'm the only comedian who ever had one of his routines as the subject of a Supreme Court case. And in 1978, they decided 5-4 that those 7 words I said were indecent. It wasn't an obscenity case, but it was called, they created a whole new category of filth just for me. And I am perversely proud of that. I'm a footnote in American legal history. But I then, when my album career kind of, you can't be the hot new guy in town forever.
That's
so
right.
that kind of faded in 76, 77. And along came HBO, and I had another medium, such as albums are, where I was uninterrupted by commercials, and I was uncensored by someone looking over my shoulder. On an album, you put out whatever you want, and on an HBO show, I do whatever I want, and that took my career, which was in the middle of a crossroads, and really pushed it to a high status, and I've done 12 of those shows. I average one I've done 11. I keep thinking about the next one, but I've done 11 of them, and in 22 years now, I've done 11, and that's every 2 years.
How did you feel about the cross from doing albums to television? That's a big jump.
Well, all during my album career, and before that, when I had an earlier surge of popularity as a straight kind of a stand-up, suit and tie, short hair, I had a wonderful career in the 60s of being what you'd call a mainstream comedian. I did all the big variety shows. I did 25 Merv Griffins and about 30 Mike Douglases and 11 Ed Sullivans. So I had a career before my hair got long and I got more personal with my comedy. But I always did television, and all I ever wanted from TV, there are 2 ways I do television. One is to go on Letterman or go on the Leno Show, and in exchange for my coming on, just like any movie star or any kind of a actress or a band leader, I come on and I give them a little marquee value, and they give me a chance to plug whatever I'm plugging. So that's one way of doing television, and in those cases, I don't try to change their rules. I'm not there to be controversial. I'm there for a commercial bargain I'm striking.
So you save the controversy for the albums or the HBOs?
Yeah, HBO is my real art, and I refer to it as art, even though that's your first name, Art. I know it sounds pretentious sometimes for a comedian to use the word art. It is entertainment first, but there's an artistic process on. It's a writing job, and you are interpreting the world through your own prism. So that's an artistic process, and I go to HBO just to show pictures of what I do. It's really essentially nothing but my theater act shown in your home. The same way a baseball game is. The baseball game it happens in the stadium, but they show them at home unchanged. That's what I do for HBO.
Do people write stuff for you, or do you write?
Never. 40 years.
All your own stuff.
Only time I ever had anything written was when I would be on a variety show in the 60s, and they would write a sketch that I was in. Anything I ever uttered as my own has always been written by me. That's my pride.
Oh yeah.
That I've written everything, and that I don't need help. This is a self-contained unit.
Do you ever wonder? And I ask a lot of famous people about this, because Ted Turner once said on a Pinnacle show I saw him, and he said, having all this money, having everything, the CNN, the whole thing that I've got, he said, at the end of the day, it's all kind of an empty bag. That's what he said. It's kind of an empty bag. He's got so much money, so much everything. It doesn't mean much to him anymore. It's an empty bag.
Well, that sounds as if he doesn't get much joy from the process that he's in. I'm assuming he didn't think to mention that part. No, I consider myself lucky and privileged to have been able to use my natural gifts in a way that satisfied me without, but doing it all on my own terms and being rewarded for it. Not just with money, but with this, that's the positive thing I was going to say a long time back. Here's what it is.
Yes.
I get to have, even though I was a kind of a lonesome kid, and I love my lonership, and I love being alone in the world, and Sally and I love being a little small unit separated from the rest. But you know something? When I go into an airport or a restaurant or a hotel lobby, I have people who say nice things to me, who say, I saw you in 1971, I saw you in 1965. Oh, my sister she loved you, she passed away last year, and she just had your book next to her. All these strange stories about how you touched people's lives. And I think of it as an extended family for whom I don't have to buy Christmas gifts. They like me, I like them one at a time as I meet them, but it's a wonderful gift to have, and it's part of that paradox. Like I say, the cynic is really a disappointed idealist, while the loner is longing to belong to something. Somewhere in him there's the need to belong and be accepted, at least in my case, and I get a little of that. I get a lot of it.
We're kind of afraid to at the same time, right?
Yes, that's right. I don't want to be ruled by the other, but I like knowing that I've touched them and that they care about me.
If we could have a one world something or another that would be, kind of like this country.
Workable, viable.
Yeah, that'd be all right. But you've done a lot of travel. You've been to Russia, I bet. Right. You've been to China. I've been to both those places fairly recently.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, they'd have shot you a long time ago.
Listen, this is the best thing we've come up with. I admit that. It's a grudging admittance because I like having my little attitudes, but I'm not dishonest. And this is the best we've done, the best we've come up with. I just wish that the ability to refine it and to make it better were more viable, were more available to us. It seems as though there are a lot of, and a lot of it is that money, that political money, the interests that control things, and that's the way it is. When they talk about conspiracies, and one of the things I enjoy on your show is when people talk about the government, and I'm talking about your guests who talk about whether or not the government and certain agencies and certain aspects of government have covered things up. And I have thought for a long time, not always obviously, but that, they try to make it so that the belief in a conspiracy makes you somehow outside the norm, that you're a kook, that you're a conspiracy buff. They say he's a conspiracy buff.
George, they lie their asses off.
I know it. And I wrote a little something out, and I want to read it to you because I pulled this paper up from the other room. I have some notes I haven't filed yet. And I said, well, if this comes up, I'd like to be able to say this to Art. So let me just read this to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it goes like this. Do I believe in conspiracies? Nah. Do I believe powerful people would get together and plan for certain outcomes? Nah. Do I believe powerful interests would operate outside the law and maybe even kill people? Nah. Do I believe secret government agencies might feel the need to assassinate a person and cover it up? Nah. I think everything in America is open and clean and above board, and powerful people always play by the rules. That's my thought.
Yeah, well, you should have been on my government agent line.
Oh.
I had a government agent line open earlier.
Really? Yeah. My biggest sadness is that I do go to sleep. Not my biggest sadness. Listen to this hyperbole. God, I gotta slap myself. One of my disappointments is that I don't get to hear you every night all the way through, and that I don't get to hear you every night. I do go to sleep a little bit early. Down here in Las Vegas, I do go to sleep late, but I'm usually writing at night and working on my computer.
Okay, then listen to me. Tomorrow night, have you ever heard of Ed Dames? He's a remote viewer. But, we spent $20 million on a remote viewing program in the government. He was part of that.
You've had him on before, haven't you?
That's right. They call him Dr. Doom.
Okay.
And that's for good reason. Because, I'll tell you why. Hold on. We'll do a plug for you when we get back and do a final segment here. He promised me 2 hours, and we're certainly well into that. George Carlin is my guest. We'll be right back. That's right. Tomorrow night, by the way, Ed Dames will be here. Dr. Doom. And they are always wild programs. So if you're into pending disaster, you're going to want to be here tomorrow night. Believe me.
that short guy George was talking about a little while ago. Call Art Bell in the Kingdom of Nye from west of the Rockies at 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. First-time callers may reach Art at 1-775-727-1222. And the wildcard line is open at 1-775-727-1295. To reach Art on the toll-free international line, call your AT&T operator and have them dial 800-893-0903. This is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell from the Kingdom of Nye.
And right now, George Carlin is my guest. He'll be back in a moment, and we're going to do the big payoff here, the plug. So you don't want to miss that. Stay right where you are. All right, here we go again. And George, I know you do have something coming out, something new, something people can get soon. What is it?
Yeah, and by the way, this makes a wonderful first communion gift.
Oh?
Yes. Now, this is the box set. The albums I talked about earlier from the 1970s, we took all 6 of them and put them in a CD box set.
Oh, my God.
And not many comedians have a box set, I'm happy to say. This is all 6 albums from the 70s, plus a bonus album. You gotta have a bonus, Art.
Sure.
Gotta have a free extra added complimentary bonus gift album for no cost to you. This is 70 minutes of things no one has ever heard of mine, so it's like a new album within the box set. All stuff from that era that didn't make the albums then, because at that time the LPs only accommodated about 45 minutes of spoken word.
That's right.
So we always had some things I had to leave out, and it always bothered me, but I've taken them all, put them together, put them in the bonus CD, and here's the really interesting part, because, a box set is a fan's purchase. This is not a general consumer item. People don't go spend $80 on a comedian's box set, but if they're fans, if they're really crazed, they care about these things. And in this bonus CD, on it, are some recordings I made as a child. Before tape recorders were very common. In fact, they were only sold in showrooms at the time, not even in consumer stores. I was lucky enough, my mother bought me a tape recorder when I graduated from grammar school in 1951, but it was as big as a Buick, Art.
So you were how old?
I was, at that time, 14, just turned 14.
So this is material from when you were 14?
It's before that, it's when I was 12, because before I had my tape recorder, I had to go to those little booths. Remember those little booths?
Yep.
In the arcades, you put in a quarter, and for a minute they'd record your voice, and they'd give you a little acetate record.
That's right. Yes, I remember.
Well, I made 8 of them when I was about 12 years old, and I've kept them all these years, and we put them on this CD, and it's got my, it's just like hearing a prototype of what I wound up doing later. It's all these little routines and comedy impressions and newscasts and sports things. And you can hear my old New York accent. I say, "Good evening, this is George Carlin with the news." And it warms my heart, and I think a fan might be interested in it. There are 6 of those little records on there.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, and so the album, it's just my box set. They don't have to know the name of it. It happens to be called The Little David Years. But asking for it by my name is enough. And I just want people who care about my stuff, because I know those fans exist, to have access to this. And like I say, a wonderful first communion gift.
Yeah, right. All right, so these are available like in record stores.
Yeah.
Is there an 800 number or something?
No, they're available. Atlantic Records has been my distributor forever. My label is called Eardrum, but I'm distributed by Atlantic Records, and this is in all the stores.
All right. So it's there now.
Yes, it
already
is.
there now.
Yeah.
That's quite a project. So really, you always knew, or you were always who you are now. You're just sort of a progression of what you were.
That's right. When I was 11 years old in 5th grade, they said we wrote little autobiographies. I think 11 is a good year for that. And the last page was, what do you want to be? What about your future? And I still know mine. I still have it, actually. I have the little piece of paper. It says, I want to be an actor, comedian, impersonator, disc jockey, radio announcer, or trumpet player. I always knew what I wanted, and I planned my life when I was about 14 or 15. I planned how I would go about it. I'd become a disc jockey, and then that would get me into comedy.
Is that what you did?
You mean, did I follow the plan?
Yeah, in other words, did you become a disc jockey?
Yes, I got into disc jockeying when I was 19. I was in the Air Force down in Shreveport, Louisiana. I was on the number 1 station in a 9-station market. I had a 52 share, Art.
52 share?
A 52 share in a 9-station market.
That's really incredible.
I was 19 years old. It was a daytime station, 1,000 watts. It was called KJOE, KJO in Shreveport. And being a daytime station, we had to get our listeners back again every morning, you know. They wander away at night.
That's right.
So it was a good station, and I had a very lucky childhood. I got to plan my own life and live it out, and I consider myself a very lucky man. And I've worked hard for it, too, but that's genetic. You know, working hard is not something you decide. It's something that comes to you because you kind of feel like you ought to do it.
I always knew, too, exactly what I was going to do. Radio all the way, and I've done that all my life. But there are so many people out there who are, I don't know, they have no idea what they want to do.
Yeah.
You talk to the kids, and I don't know.
Well, they don't have an overriding interest or an overriding talent or an overriding goal or art form that, you know, kind of drives them, something that takes over.
I was going to say drive. Oh.
Yeah, something that takes you over and says, this is it, buddy.
It actually, it's almost like it's a drive that's almost more than drive. It's a madness almost.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with genetics. I mean, I honestly think they're finding out, of course, the more they map this human genome and start to isolate some of these genes, and some of it's oversimplified, I know. But I think they're finding, and I've always said that it's mostly genetic. There's a good amount of environmental. I mean, there's a lot of nurture, but boy, nature is really in charge.
How old did you say you were? 60?
I'm now 62. I'll be 63 in May.
You know, I have the world's experts at longevity on the program, doctors, and they are telling me, honestly, if you can hang on for another 30 years,
yes,
there's every probability we can give you immortality.
Well, I know about some of those projections. I don't know them as, you know, in such a detailed fashion as I'm sure you do. But
you're kind of on the edge here.
It's funny that you say 30 years because I have predicted for myself to live to 94.
Really?
Yes, I've always said that's my goal. And I know that the brain, I learned something as a teenager, that the brain, I read a book called God, now I can't think of the name of it. Isn't that great?
Doesn't matter.
Psycho-cybernetics. And it said that the brain is a goal-seeking, problem-solving mechanism. And if you put in a problem and a goal, the brain will do everything it can to get there. Mm-hmm. So I put 94 years in there once because my uncle or great-uncle, Uncle Martin, he was 94 and he was doing push-ups in my kitchen when I was a kid. And I said, 94 sounds good. And I know the kind of work that people like Linus Pauling and Philip Johnson and a number of other people have done in their 90s. And as long as I have my faculties, I expect to have this kind of energy and drive and stamina until then. And boy, it'd be nice if they came and give me that immortality.
Yeah, but they really aren't. They're not just talking about immortality. They're talking about taking you back to your prime and stopping the aging process.
Wow. Well,
I don't know if that'd be good, actually.
Well, I know, but you know what? It'd be worth an experiment.
Well, if you were one of the ones.
Think of the alternative. Right?
That's right. All right, look, I do have a radio show. Can I put a couple of callers on with you?
Oh, I'd love that. And by the way, I have a website called GeorgeCarlin.com. It's a really nice, well-engineered website. And again, I speak mostly to fans. I'm not trying to sell myself to the general public. I have a nice little percentage of the population that likes me. And I want them to know I have a great website called GeorgeCarlin.com.
Well, if we don't have a link, we will within minutes.
Oh, thank you.
All right. First time caller line, you're on the air with George Carlin. Hello.
Yeah, hello, George.
How are you?
I have two questions, if I may.
What's your name, sir?
Where am I? Los Angeles?
No, I mean your name, sir.
Oh, Zan.
Zan.
Short for Alexander.
Okay, Zan. Nice to talk to you.
Sometimes they say it's an old Martian name, but...
Doesn't sound bad to me.
Yeah, well, their question is, have you read, I know you're talking about we being a product of some accident. Have you read books by, like, Darwin's Black Box by a biologist who believes that idea of random evolution is not scientifically viable?
You mean the combination of punctuated equilibrium and natural selection is not viable, the whole Darwinian combination?
Yeah, well, the idea of the process of it being accidental.
Oh.
You know.
Well, no, sir, obviously I haven't read it, and I admit to being poorly read. I'm usually wasting my time writing rather than reading. But I will have a tape of this show, and I will have a reference. I can write it down at another time and look for it. I do enjoy that sort of reading.
Well, he just wanted to sort of infect you with the possibility that it's not all random. that there really is the God that you talk about that isn't there.
But is he judgmental?
Well, we didn't get that far with it. I would say there'd be a strong possibility of it, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's implied. Roseanne is gone already. Okay.
Wildcard Line, you're on the air with George Carlin and Art Bell. Good morning.
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning to both of you guys.
Hi, where are you, sir?
I am in Michigan, and my name is Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Yeah, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I figured I'd call in and ask you what you thought about all basically the horrors in U.S. history, blue laws, everything that restricts personal liberty, the government killing people, basically the bad side of U.S. history that's never really exposed to a great deal to the mass public.
Well, I'm sympathetic to what you're saying, and my own knowledge of it goes so far as maybe to have read some Howard Zinn and to read some of that part of history. I've often said when they talk about, there are people who say that we've had a loss of civility in this country, that there's been this breakdown in manners and civility. And I say, well, what civility would that be? Would that be the genocide of the Indians? Would that be slavery? Would that be the Hiroshima or the Nagasaki civility? Which civility do we mean? I think this country has a lot to answer for. A lot to answer for.
Tuskegee.
Pardon me?
Tuskegee.
Yes. Well, you can go on and on.
Hazel O'Leary, our own energy secretary, walking out incredibly just a couple of years ago and saying we fed plutonium to kids and pregnant women, stuff like that.
Oh, and these stories are legion. I mean, the list is getting longer and longer. And if you just think about the labor violence in the 1930s, in the name of commerce, in the name of big business, it is a terrible, blotted record. And I have always said, when people revere the flag, I've always said, you have to look at that flag for everything it stands for, not just what you perceive to be heroic and perhaps good things, but everything it's ever stood for. And the record is more than just mixed.
Well, yeah, it is. And, I remember when I was young, and I'm not that much younger than you are, I remember when the Federal Bureau of Investigation would come out, they'd come on television, it'd be like, we've caught so-and-so. It was like the word of gold. I mean, when the FBI came on, man, you believed every word they said. Today, if the FBI says something, you almost automatically disbelieve it.
Absolutely. I think it is a good thing. There are people who decry this, that this loss of trust in our leaders, in our government. Well, the record is there, and I think it's a good thing. And if it's going to require some bloodshed someday to get it right, because I honestly believe, what I like about assassination art? It shoots the hell out of those popularity polls. Those polls, he's up to 70% now. All of a sudden, bing, he's not even in the poll anymore. I'm not telling people to go out and do that, but I'm telling you, when I see that, and we're way behind India even. India has killed 3 Gandhis, and we've only killed 2 Kennedys.
Israel's been busy?
It's exciting to me. I just love that punctuation in history when it happens.
Well, they warned me. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with George Carlin. Good morning.
Hello. Hi, who do I got here?
Who do you suppose?
I don't know.
Well, who are you calling?
No, I'm George.
Oh, no, I meant the caller. Oh, the caller's gone. We somehow lost the caller. That's too bad.
Somebody just picked him off.
That's right. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with George Carlin and Art Bell.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Hi there.
I'm calling from L.A., Mac.
Hi, Mac. How are you doing? I'm George.
Little Yuppieville suburb. But the comment I had was it's kind of weird the way humans think with profanity and everything. Doesn't really make any sense. Like a teacher at one time brought up a good point. Like if you switch the words crap and red, then it'd be perfectly fine to say, yeah, could you hand me that crap pen? But you say, yeah, I really got to take a red. The teacher yells at you.
Right.
That's right. Yes, that is right.
Well, the thing about words is that they're arbitrary designations, and they freeze meaning. They don't allow for nuance or any sort of spectrum, and that's one of the difficulties and limitations of language. And then when you add religious superstition and fear guilt and shame of the human body. This is what religion has done to us in this area of obscenity. It has taken the human body, its functions concerning sex, and as it happens, excretory procedures, and assigned to it an evil, bad attitude. I'm sorry, I'm not being too articulate about this.
Yes, you are.
I'm trying to rush. But it has to do with superstition. It is not a reality. The two most uncompromising forces in human experience are going to the bathroom and having sex. And these are the two things that are obscene. Not the taking of human life, but these two things are considered obscene, and these are the most irrepressible forces in nature.
That's what Howard Stern gets in trouble for.
Well, Howard,
Talking about that stuff.
yeah, I know, but he does it. He has to be kind of cute. How is your breath?
That's true. That's true. He's on radio, and he got in a lot of trouble. I mean, a lot of stations he was on got fined, and he went through hell.
Well,
kind of like you.
My case was the one that established that. Those 7 dirty words became a Supreme Court case because a radio station played my record on the air in 1973, and in 78, the Supreme Court decided 5-4 these words were indecent when played on the radio.
Did the radio station keep its license?
It was, yes, it did. It did. It was WBAI. It was not a commercial station. It was a listener-supported station.
And they kept their license. So
Kept their license.
Yeah, that really is a big victory, actually.
Yeah, and it's funny. They'll just define it any way they want to get what they need, what they think they need. But it's so absurd. I mean, I just read Newsweek, and it's got a story about John McCain, and it says how he said F blank 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 Y blank blank blank. Now there it is in plain black and white. They didn't say the 2 words, but it's clear what they meant, and every reader was intended to know what they meant.
Of course.
So apparently knowing what he said wouldn't hurt you or corrupt you morally.
But actually hearing it.
But to print the actual letters would somehow violate something. This is how simple-minded and how thin this philosophy is of censoring. And other places probably wouldn't say the F blank blank blank. They just say blank or expletive. And there's no real standard for this. It's all haphazard, and it's all based on religious fear, guilt, and superstition.
In the general media, is that ever going to change? In our lifetimes, maybe that's a better question. Is that ever going to change? Is the world going to just open up?
Well, there is erosion. I mean, Newsweek would not have even put that much in there 10 years ago, or certainly 20 years ago. So there's a certain erosion that takes place. But no, I can tell you a 10-letter and a 12-letter one that they'll never print, unless it's a magazine with a smaller circulation that doesn't depend so much on mass advertising. It all has to do with earning the buck. Yeah.
Money.
Yeah, not offending a buyer.
Well, you're very good at behaving yourself, aren't you? In other words, you can either be George, the HBO George, or the record album George, or you can be the George under control, even doing stuff for kids. You do some stuff.
So I did a show on PBS. I did 45 episodes. I took the place of Ringo Starr. In that respect, I'm kind of the anti-Pete Best. A very inside rock joke. I'm the anti-Pete Best. But I played a character called Mr. Conductor, and it was a sweet, well-produced and well-written children's show. It was not a kind of a garbage show, and I took a lot of pride in that. I did it because it gave me a chance to act a little in a manner where other people might not see that side of me. This thing I do is all about self-expression, kind of like exposing yourself to people and showing who you are. And this gave me a chance to show that I have another side, that I have another quality to me that perhaps they didn't think about.
Oh, you obviously do.
Sure, we all do. We all have many facets. And that's what I tell. Sometimes when I did that show, people would say, well, how can you do that? And I'd say, well, use it as a learning tool for your child to show them that people have more than one facet. People are not all monochromatic. They have different aspects to them. And I have this aspect as well as the one, the profane one.
But you can walk that line so well. I guess that's just a part of being good at what you do. Have you seen the movie The Sixth Sense yet?
No, something? I watched it in a hotel and fell asleep in the middle of it. Not because it was bad, but because it was late. I know the movie that you're talking.
Well, being a skeptic of the paranormal, I would suggest that movie to you.
Yes.
And at a moment when you can stay awake. Look, it has been, boy, has it been fun having you on the air. You promised 2 hours, and that's exactly what you have given me is 2 hours.
Well, thank you. I really thank you for the chance to be myself and to show my flaws and weaknesses and to show some of my strengths and to tell you the things I feel. And I do love your show, and I hope you do it forever and ever.
Thank you, George.
Thanks.
Good night, my friend.
Bye-bye.
That's George Carlin, as promised. Great guy from Bally's, and now I guess he can kind of wind down a little bit. You do that after a performance, you know. The adrenaline is flowing, and there's no way that you're gonna go directly to sleep. So it's kind of like a racehorse. You gotta kind of walk it off, and that's what he just did. He kind of walked it off. Now maybe he'll get some sleep. Good night, George. From the high desert, I'm Art Bell, and this is Coast to Coast.
And that was George Carlin and the immortal Art Bell. Together one night after one of his shows at Bally's in Las Vegas, Nevada. We'll be back to a full Art Bell episode tomorrow night instead of these partials so you can enjoy. Until then, please make sure you do like, share, and subscribe. Get us to the goal of 50,000 views, 1,000 subscribers, so Boxy over next year's can send those nice red boxes our way so we can help out everyone with those. And of course, 1,000 subscribers puts us on the algorithms with YouTube. Coinbase, Ibotta, Game.gg, you know the drill on those, so I'm not going to bother with those. And until next time, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. You be kind to one another, and of course, release the Krakens as we march along this overnight and every overnight from day one. Technology hasn't been the best here today. It's been a bitch, actually. And I apologize for the quality and, of course, the shortness on Part B. But hopefully we should be back to full episodes tomorrow. Till then, have a great night, and thanks for watching.